You're listening to the Fantasy Fling Podcast. Take a break from the season-long commitment and join us as we give you the newest and hottest DFS deals, preview the DFS Main Slate, and take the dreadful walk of shame. Here are your hosts, Brandon and Eric.
Uh-oh. Hey, man, you're muted. There you go. You were muted.
What are you talking about? I'm muted.
You're good now.
Okay.
You were muted. Now you're not.
Not sure how. All right, well, let's do this again. Week 13 preview of the Fantasy Fling podcast. We are doing the DFS Main Slate. That's what we're talking. Welcome. Appreciate you joining us as we talk the Main Slate of Week 13. And, of course, we'll do that quick recap of Week 12. As always, we will give you the recap of the hot plays and the walk of shame. Well, let's start out with quarterbacks and the hot plays of Week 12. It was another crazy week in the NFL. Like, WTF is going on with these games. Pretty much just like fade the main game. Whatever game is like the highest projected, just go ahead and fade that game in tournaments and stack other games, and you're probably going to be doing way better, especially because those end up being the chalkiest. And it was one of the weeks where, like, even if you were, willing to start those chalky plays but get different elsewhere, just the chalk failed, and then just getting different elsewhere was really tricky. So fading the main game. We'll see if it continues in Week 13. As far as quarterbacks, the top ones on the slate, we had Aaron Rodgers. He, in that same game, that Green Bay and LA game, we have Rodgers and Stafford, number 1 and 2. So Rodgers, 29.3 points. Spoiler alert, I actually binked a small tournament this past week, and Rodgers was my quarterback that I stacked in that tournament with Randall Cobb. Stafford, didn't play very well, right? Like, if we're talking like NFL quarterbacking, not his best game. I think it was his like third consecutive pick six game in a row. But fantasy points, he got it done. 26.9 points. Wentz, actually, like, if you, I tweeted this out about that Tampa and Indy game. So if you just faded the Brady side altogether, with the exception of maybe just playing Fournette, and you went on the other side and you did a Wentz stack, just like a Hilton or, Doyle, there was different ways to go about it in that game, and you would have done much better by fading Tampa Bay passing. So Wentz was the third top-ranked quarterback, and then Herbert, they pretty much got stomped by the Broncos. Did not see that coming, but nonetheless, garbage time points. Herbert had 24.7. And then Mac Jones, 24.5. Belichick, man. I still can't believe Mac Jones kind of fell into his lap. Most pro-ready quarterback in the draft. Perfect fit for Belichick's scheme. And he's been having a great year. People are saying, he's the next Brady. I'm not getting that carried away, but nonetheless, he looks good. As far as running backs, Eric, we just talked about this like 5 minutes ago. I can't even begin to tell you. Like, I was thinking game theory, and I was like, you know what? What if Fournette gets all the tutties in this game? And sure enough, he did. He got 47 points. Believe it or not, I had a lineup with Fournette in it and a bunch of other stars, and I barely made $2 off that lineup in a tournament, because Fournette was basically the only guy that really smashed. I'm talking Dalvin Cook. I'm talking Justin Jefferson, Barkley, some of these other guys, Fournette. And then I had Miami D. They scored 23 points. So I got 70 points between Fournette and Miami D, but that was it. He crushed it, though. Mixon, didn't we talk about this on Making a Millie? He's been in the nuts lineup like 3 or 4 times this year. He did it again.
I think he's damn near 50% of the time. I think he's been in the Millie Maker lineup. He's been there a lot, man. It's crazy. He's having a hell of a year.
He's a beast, no doubt about it. So next we have Elijah Mitchell. I had some exposure to him as well. He had a great game versus Minnesota. I had some stacks going, but Cousins stacks really didn't go very well unless you had Thielen. So Cousins, Jefferson, I had a lot of that stacked. Some Osborne, bringing it back with Mitchell. Mitchell did well, but it was definitely one of those weeks where it was just hard to get the right players. Mitchell being one of them, of course, and fourth, Cordarrelle Patterson. So news came down that he was going to play. I actually had Mike Davis in my Millie Maker lineup for a while, and then when news came down that Patterson was going to play, I nixed that, and I made some Patterson lineups, and they did well, just didn't have enough. And then Hilliard, I did have him in a lot of tournament lineups, and I was seeing him like anywhere from 3 to 9% owned. So if you had Hilliard, like he crushed his value last week. You did very well if you played a lot of him.
Man, I regret fading Patterson. I thought coming back, I was like, well, he's coming back from an ankle sprain. Oftentimes, it takes guys multiple weeks to come back. He came back 2 weeks after. I wasn't sure what his usage would be like. I faded him. I should not have done that.
That's how it goes.
Yeah, man. Well, moving on to the wide receivers. And also, by the way, I love seeing guys like Hilliard. Good on him. You see guys who just never really been given a chance, and when they finally do, they perform. Mm-hmm. I mean, most of his points came on one run, but hey, so it still counts, right?
Yes, sir.
First place, Jalen Waddle. I love the fact that he's taken up his end zone dance. I love that he's taken his.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes.
I love it. I'm like, hey, man, he's embracing it. People probably give him shit for it. And he's like, you know what? Hey, watch
Penguin.
this. Yeah.
It was hilarious.
31.7 points against the Panthers. And then, man, a guy that I felt like I'd see on this list many times this year, T. Higgins, finally had a good game. Mm-hmm. He's had the target share. He's had targets. He's had the air yards. He just hasn't hit yet. Finally, 26.4 points for T. Higgins.
Yeah, he got the touchdown targets last week, so that was the difference.
I mean, there was a game. I'm trying to remember who it was against a while back where maybe it was the Raiders, but he had an amazing catch. And he was down on like the half-yard line, and he may have not even been down, but they didn't challenge it. But he could have been on this list a few times. I think he's been real close, and I think he's really talented. 26.4 points against the rivals, the Steelers. As you talked about, Adam Thielen, he went off. That guy. He's a touchdown scorer. That's what he does.
He
it's not a
he vultures all the tutties for the receivers in that offense.
He does, man. When they're near the red zone, that's his boy. I mean, he hits him. That's a what do they call? What does Chris Ferris say? It's a feature, not a bug.
Yeah. What is it? Is it the league? Was it Andre's like, you're the Mike Tolbert of my life? He's talking about vulturing touchdowns. Yeah. Thielen is that in that offense. He's going to vulture the tutties.
And then he had a 23.2, and then 23.1 points went to Kendrick Bourne, number 5 quarterback, number 4 receiver. So Mac Jones was on the list. We also see Bourne. Usually we'll see a bit more crossover on the top. But speaking of that, Devonte Adams, beast, 21.4 points, with Rodgers being the number 1 quarterback. Not surprised to see him on the list at all. Although I guess to an extent it was. However, they didn't really do man coverage with Ramsey. They didn't put him 1-on-1. His day might have been different if they did that, but they didn't do it. I don't know why. I don't get it, but Adams with a good week. Moving on to tight ends, it's fine to see Gronk back on the list.
Yes,
Gronkowski, he crushed it.
He saved me from having a horrible day because I had a lot of Gronk exposure. Luckily, he had a great day.
He's the only receiver on the Tampa Bay that did anything.
Yeah.
Evans and Godwin did nothing.
Dude, for a while, I thought Godwin was inactive, and I missed the fucking tweet.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it.
He had a catch. I didn't see the play. I mean, I saw a highlight. I didn't see it live, but he fumbled, and that killed. That's automatically -1 already. Yeah, I don't know what happened. Like, it was a Fournette day, I guess, and Gronk day. And then on the other side of the ball, Doyle rules. You got Jack Doyle with 20 points.
Jack Doyle.
Good to see him, man. He's he if you remember back when Andrew Luck was the thing, Jack Doyle was a hot tight end to own back then. He kind of faded away, became more of a blocking tight end. But hey, good to see him on the list. 20.1 points. And then you got welcome back Dawson Knox. He had 2 touchdowns and only like 36 yards, but he scored 18.2 points against the Saints. And then Pat Freiermuth, when they call the Moose or the Muth, 14 points against the Bengals. And then Brevin Jordan. I had to double check this because there were so many games on Thursday that had like good tight end scoring. I had to double check this. So Brevin Jordan, 11.3 points against the Jets. I went through and checked it like 4 times. Like, that can't be right.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. It was a weird slate. You know, I heard some other people talk about this, kind of just doing a recap. I listen to the Gilcast every Monday morning. Love listening to those guys. And, you know, they were just kind of saying, well, it was weird because you typically you don't look like you're doing work all week, right, for the main slate. But this week, because of the Thursday games, like, didn't really start looking at it until Friday, which was kind of threw everyone's routine off for sure.
Yeah.
And I'll get into it, but it definitely threw my routine off for the week. But defenses, let's run through it real quick. Dolphins versus Carolina. Oh, by the way, Bad Cam, I'm back. He was back.
I played the Dolphins everywhere because I wasn't convinced. That's exactly why I played them.
Yep, I played them too. And actually, you know, they crushed it for me in a few lineups that I had them in. And then, and honestly, I would have played them a lot more if I didn't have Christian McCaffrey. But, you know, it's because, like, you don't play like a defense against your running back. It's not going to correlate well. You play your running back with that defense, with their defense, not the opposing defense. But Bengals, they play them too versus Pittsburgh because Big Ben's washed, dude. Like, he's super washed.
Yeah.
Even that touchdown he had a Freiermuth, like, it was like in between 2 defenders. It could have easily been an interception. Yeah, and he threw a pick six. Like, he was just bad. A couple interceptions. Broncos, Patrick Surtain ended up, pick six, 2 interceptions, 1 pick six. He's really good. The Broncos, they certainly pass on Justin Fields for Surtain, but you know, if Surtain ends up being the next great corner in the league and then you go out and find a quarterback, no one's going to really remember that. And then the Patriots were very pricey.
Just put it that.
Yeah. The Patriots were really pricey. I think they were like $3,900. I paid up for them like once or twice, but not a lot. Obviously, it's something you do in GPPs. But yeah, they had 14 points. And then the Packers and Giants, kind of surprising, right? The Giants, 13 points. And then, you know, Packers, you get a pick six, that'll score some points. But anyways, that's going to do it for the hot plays on the DFS Week 12 main slate. Eric, tell me your hot plays. I know you finished number 1 in making a milli, but you got any hot plays to talk about?
Well, you know, the cat. I guess we go through the cash lineup a little bit in the milli maker. I mean, we'll do the milli maker on Friday, but I played Cam Newton. So the fact that I cashed, and also Dan Arnold. He got hurt. You
cashed last week?
Yep, I did.
Nice.
I did. I cashed with Cam scoring 8 points and Dan Arnold getting 2 points. He got hurt. You know, I had some other guys. I had Eckler and Henderson that did well for me. I played Waddle. It was he was the highest scorer on the whole slate for me. He was 31.7. He saved my week. Ayuk, I thought would have a bigger week, didn't. However, this week with Debo out, he might be a play again
for sure.
And then you got I played the Texans D, and apparently they actually were 72% owned. They're pretty high in the owned against the Jets. It's like, you know, pick your poison, but they're only 2,300, so they you got 2.5x from that one. And I played. I can't say it's a hot play. I had Miles Sanders in that lineup too, and he didn't do well. But I kind of got lucky with a few guys who did really well. It could have gone really bad with Cam playing like crap, and I saw he was pulled in like the late third or early fourth quarter.
Pulled for PJ Walker.
Yep. Yeah, that's not good. Maybe it was just to teach him a lesson. I don't know. You have Darnold coming back. You have Cam. I don't know what the hell they're going to do. It's a trio of a mess. Can't call that a trifecta. Trifecta's awesome. That'd be me, you, and Ryan. But
getting in.
I don't know what you call them.
Shit.
That's like the fail. I don't even know what to say. That's not good. But I mean, that was my cash lineup. I scored 135 points. Not the greatest cash lineup, but enough to cash.
Yeah, bro.
I mean, I had some good stacks.
135 points.
Yeah, in my cash lineup, it's not bad.
That's a really good cash lineup by last week's terms.
Yeah, I mean, not bad at all. I was in like the top, out of 100, I was always in like the top 8. So
yeah,
went pretty well. As far as the other, like when I played some more tournaments, I played a lot of Devonte Williams. That paid off pretty well.
I had some of him too.
I was talking about him going well. I played Mixon basically in everyone as well, and that obviously paid off because that guy's a stud. And the Dolphins' defense really helped me out as well a lot on those. Those are the main guys who helped me on in the Millie Maker. I scored 143 points, which is enough to cash. I get $30, so I won 10.
Nice.
It's better than losing money though, so I'll take it.
Yeah, anytime you win money in the Millie Maker, that's good.
Yeah, man. I was hoping Cousins would connect with Justin Jefferson a few more times. Like he tried to target him in the end zone. That might have made my week a lot different if a couple of those connections came through. But what can you do?
No doubt about it. So for me, not a lot of hot plays. It was overall kind of a miserable week for me. But I banked my first tournament this year. I banked my first tournament. Of course, it was a small tournament, and it was $1 entry. So I won $14. But it's how it goes.
Hey, man.
So these 100-person tournaments, 100-entry tournaments, they are like my favorite tournaments because I regularly finish top 10, top 5 in these tournaments. Whether it's like $1, $3, $5, or $10 entry. The payout structure is quite good for them. So I really like these tournaments. As I mentioned, I had a Rodgers. Actually, I had a Rodgers double stack. So Rodgers, Devonte Adams, Randall Cobb, and actually, I didn't even have a bring back in that game. No, I did. Henderson. So Rodgers, 29 points. Cobb, 18 points. Adams, 21 points. And then, Darrell Henderson was my bring back, 17 points. Also had Elijah Missile, maybe. 30 points. Brandon Cooks, 13 points. Pittman was my worst performing player, 9 points. Had Gronk, 22 points, and Bucks D, 12 points. So in a low-scoring week, 174 points was my score in this tournament. It was actually like 12 points higher than second place. So I pretty much crushed it in this one. Nice. And that's pretty much it for my hot plays. So now that we've done the hot plays, let's get into the walk of shame. I'll do it. This is the worst I've ever done in cash. Now, I will say that I wasn't super excited about my quarterback cash play this week. That said, the guy I chose, Tyrod Taylor, actually did decent. He scored me 16 points, and he was cheap, so it wasn't bad. That said, my running backs, I played 3 running backs. I had Christian McCaffrey, James Robinson, and Barkley. So I felt like I had a high floor and high ceiling, and it couldn't have been like any worse of a floor. And the ceiling was non-existent at all. James Robinson was the best with 13 points, followed by Barkley with 9 points, and then Christian McCaffrey 3 points. Obviously got hurt, but it was just horrible. And then Godwin was the chalk. So McCaffrey was like 47% owned. Robinson as well, 35% owned. Godwin, 38% owned. He scored 5 points. Cooks, 29% owned. He scored 13 points. Was, pretty decent for him. Pittman was such a disappointment, 49% owned, 9 points. Especially when, Indy is scoring as many touchdowns as they are. And, they're not all going to Jonathan Taylor. It was just quite shocking. And then, it was horrible. I scored 75 points in cash. So this was one of the weeks where cash, the chalk, just did not hit at all. So it was miserable. That said, I've still cashed 10 out of 12 weeks on the season, which is really good for being able to cash. And I guess you could say 10 and a half because I cashed in the Thursday games. So that's where we're at. That's my walk of shame this week, was my cash performance.
Did you see it was somewhere on Twitter. It was either last week or I think it was last week. Some guy had an incredible lineup, and he scored like 11 points or something in his league.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw that. It
was a pretty good team, too. Like, I imagine he's a contender. I can't remember his record, but he scored like 11 points because everyone just crapped the bed.
He's like, I've never seen this in like all of my years of playing fantasy football. He's like, what the hell is this? It's been like that, man. It's been crazy.
I don't have a great walk of shame, to be honest with you, man. I did well on Thursday. I did well over this weekend. I doubled my money. Trying to think of a walk of shame I had. I mean, there's a league I'm in, the Dynasty League, that I'm about to throw in the towel, but I don't have a big walk of shame. I mean, I did pretty well this week. I was trying to think earlier of it, and I don't have a Halloween story this time around to be my walk of shame. So
yeah, that's all right.
It was a pretty good week for me, man. I can't complain. I did well on Thursday. I did well on Sunday, and even on Monday. On Monday, I did a couple of small. If you guys play much of the sports, the sports book, but those go well.
Nice, man.
Yeah, so not a huge walk of shame this week. I'm sure I'll have one next week though. Put my foot in my mouth.
It's all good. No worries, man. Well, speaking of next week, week 13, DFS Main Slate. Let's get into it, Eric. I'm gonna have you start it for us. Why don't you start the Vegas lines?
Sounds good.
And then I'll take it from there.
Yeah, man. There's two teams that are 50.5 point spreads. Both the start at the top, whether you want to go either one. But Tampa, it seems like no matter what, Tampa's pretty much always going to be near the top on point spreads. That one is a 50.5 point game, Tampa versus Atlanta, with Tampa being favored by 11 point favorite. They're projected 31 point team total. This should be a game. We talked about this. This seems like a game. Last game seemed like, okay, Brady should have an incredible game, and Fournette's going to struggle because the Colts are good against the run, and Fournette went off. This is a game where you think, okay, Fournette's going to go off this game, but I have a feeling Brady's going to go off this game, so I'll probably be playing him in my lineups. But yeah, 50.5 point spread. Tampa with a 31 point team total. Same spread, 50.5 with the Chargers and Bengals, with the Cincinnati being a 3-point favorite. They have a 27 point team total. I like both quarterbacks in that game, with Herbert a little more, but good to see two Vegas lines with 50 plus points projected.
Sure.
Although, like we talked about, maybe we should just fade that one and play like Jacksonville and the Rams or something.
Yeah.
They have a 49 point spread of a Washington football team and the Raiders. The Raiders being a 2.5 point favorite, projected for 26 point team total. I don't know, man. That game seems. I'll tell you what, Washington. If you look at the whole year, that defense looks bad. If you look at the last 4 weeks, the defense has played really well. So I feel like it's not as much as an easy of a defense as people think. So I could see going on the under of this spread.
Right.
And then you got 47 point spread with the Minnesota and Detroit. Minnesota being a 7-point favorite. 27 point team total projected. I imagine Madison's probably going to be played heavily. Although Detroit's not horrible against the run, just their defense is always on the field. But he's been priced up quite a bit, so we'll see how that goes. And then the last game on there, Jacksonville and the Rams. The Rams are a 12.5 point team favorite with a 47 point spread, and the Rams are projected for 30 point team total. Basically, what that means is they're 12.5 points. They're projected to slaughter the Jags. However, I feel like this was 3 weeks ago. Jacksonville played Buffalo, and the spread was it was huge, and I think Buffalo was even a bigger spread than that, and they beat Buffalo. So man, you just never know, right? It's supposed to be a 47 point spread. I don't know. That may be the game that goes off or does nothing, but that's where we're at. Those are the top 5, and then there's a couple that are 45.5 points that are Indy and Houston and Arizona and Chicago. So. Which, by the way, Indy's an 8.5 point favorite. That might be a slaughter game for my boy, JT, against Houston.
Yes, sir. Well, let's get into the hot plays of Week 13. But speaking of hot, Owner's Box, we have a hot deal for you. Every single week I get tons of emails from them about just huge contest overlays. It is DFS. It is Superflex. They have married. So most of us play Superflex in some way or another. So it's quite fun to play it with DFS, especially when you're playing contests that are not filling, and you still get that guaranteed prize pool. So right now they are doing a $25 match with your first deposit. Rake-free contests, overlays, no sharks. Guys have to check this out. We will put the link in the podcast subscription, but head over Owner's Box if you want something different. If you're tired of, seeing a bunch of Osimo and DFS Army, and all these roto grinders, you're tired of seeing all these avatars in contests, just full of sharks. Check it out. Win some money. Beat up on the little guy a little bit. Straight out like Step Brothers. Just kicking the crap out of little kids. It's okay to do that every now and then, especially in DFS. But let's get to the hot plays of Week 13, the quarterbacks. So right now for me, just going over to DFS Army.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
You like that?
You might remember that scene of that. Like, I remember that. Those scenes are awesome. That's a great movie. I love that movie.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's all right. We laugh on this podcast. That's what we do.
Good to go.
Yes, sir. So heading over to DFS Army, looking at the projections this week for quarterbacks. The guy that's certainly coming up in the optimals and just projections right now is Tom Brady. So had a down week last week. I tweeted it out. I've never seen a Brady game where they just ran so much at the goal line. Now, you might have seen this right sometimes in New England when he just didn't have the pass catchers anymore, and it was just clear that running was their best option. But dude, he's got Gronk, he's got Evans, he's got Godwin, and they were just running the ball, and I feel like that was just because Indy's got a pretty good defense, and it was just matchup based. They're just playing the matchups. Well, the Falcons are a little different. Brady he has trashed the Falcons. I'll pull up his game log
They're
real quick.
a trash team. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
They're not very good. Not good.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of how it goes. So, yeah, week 2, he threw 5 touchdowns against Atlanta. That was this year. Last year, he threw 4 touchdowns against them in one game and 2 touchdowns the other game. So, averaging 4 touchdowns a game versus Atlanta. His floor is low 20s, and that's that's just sleeper stats. That's not PPR. That's actually half PPR that I was looking at. That doesn't include all the DraftKings bonuses and whatnot. So some of the optimals I'm pulling up, I do think there's going to be enough value this week at running back, and we'll get into that in the next section.
Oh, yeah.
Brady's probably going to be just my cash play. I'm just going to lock it in with Brady. Set it, forget it. That's where I'm going quarterback this week.
I like Brady too, man. We were just talking about it. I'm on Brady this week as well. I think it's a game where it seems like you could run. I mean, but one thing I like about Tampa is they'll pull Brady when they're midway through the fourth quarter, but oftentimes when they have a lead, teams will just run. That's all they'll do.
Mm-hmm.
The Tampa will still keep passing, and I think that's partly Brady and that's partly the coaching. But they keep their foot on the gas pedal. I like to see that. I mean, other teams don't like to see it. The team they play against, it's like, come on, you beat us already. Just run the ball. But they just put up points. I don't know if Tom Brady at this point, he knows at some point he's going to run out. So I think he's trying to just, add more records to see how far he can push that record out. But I do like Brady a lot this week as well. A guy that it sounds scary, but I might play him in cash. A guy who's really cheap, but he's okay. Is Taylor Heineke. He's 5.6 thousand. It does not take much for him to get to his value. It can be a little scary. I get it. He runs the ball. He's not a great quarterback, but he's got good weapons around him. Logan Thomas coming back also helps. He got a lot of targets last week. Taylor Heineke could be a good play as well. So I'm looking at him. And there's a couple guys. If you're Justin Herbert, he's more of a I guess a tournament play because he's Jekyll and Hyde sometimes. But man, he can put up 40 points. We've seen it. So
I think he's a decent play this week. If I putting together my lineup and I need to save like $500 salary somewhere, I could see going down to Herbert. His floor is pretty decent. He's had a couple of stinkers this year, obviously, but he's going against Cincinnati. It's projected to be a high-scoring game. I like to get that game environment. There's a lot of studs all over. Definitely, I will heavily target that in tournaments, but he could be a cash play this week.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hate it.
Yeah, I'm debating. He could be a cash play. It could be a tournament play as well. I mean, we've seen him put low numbers up. We've seen him put big numbers up. It's just trying to figure out who you want to stack him with in the tournaments. But with cash, you don't have to stack as much, so it might just be, like you said, a good cash play.
For sure, man. Well, moving it along to running backs. So there's a couple names to really watch, and this is going to tell you really where you can afford to go this week. Because, I mean, if you look at Jonathan Taylor going against Houston, and I know you're a JT truther. I know that's your boy. And I love Jonathan Taylor. Like I said, he has fully arrived. He is, as of right now, he's the best running back in the league, hands down, because Mr. Henry is hurt. But even then, Jonathan Taylor can make a case. So at 9,200, he could be a great pay-up option this week. And there's a chance that I will do that and not play Cooper Kupp. But also like Kupp this week. So a couple names I'm watching. Henderson, does he not play? Mm-hmm. Does Sony Michel slide right in there? Because, he's a lock if Henderson doesn't play. The other guy that we are looking at, obviously there's Jamal Williams, Elijah Mitchell. Let me sort over here by fantasy points per dollar. So the top three guys I'm seeing over at DFS Army from a fantasy points per dollar perspective, James Conner, Jamal Williams, and Eli Mitchell. So 5,900, 5,400, 6,000. You could pretty much, I feel like you could lock these three into your lineup and you can go a lot of different ways with it. But obviously if Henderson is out and you can get Sony Michel, that works very well. The other thing, if McKissick is out, I also really like Gibson at 5,700. Really like him. The other guy, if Sanders is out, if he misses, Boston Scott could be another really strong play this week. Mm-hmm. So, let me see his price. Yeah, he's 4,600. So if you can play Boston Scott at 4,600, you could certainly afford to pay up for a Jonathan Taylor. The same thing with Sony Michel. If Henderson's out, he's 4,300. So I really like that. Those are pretty much the guys that I'm looking at. James Conner, Jamal Williams, Eli Mitchell, Jonathan Taylor, and then, it's kind of pending injuries for some of those other dudes.
I like I tell you what, man, I like your list. It looks very much like my list. And so I'm going to be very repetitive, but I'll make it quick. I'd love to change it up, but that's what I have written down. I penciled in. I have Jamal Williams. I have, what you said, the injury news, depending on what happens with Henderson. You have Sony Michel, the Consigliere Michel. You have Boston Scott. You also have Antonio Gibson. I think you mentioned him as well. Mm-hmm. He's 5,700. With McKissick, I mean, he was carted off the field, and oftentimes when that happens, he seemed like he was okay. It was
at least you're going to miss a game or two.
You would imagine. I mean,
best case scenario.
He seemed okay, but I think when they have neck and head injuries, they're overcautious, which is fine. It's understandable. If he's out, though, it's kind of been McKissick and Gibson splitting. I think Gibson is in a great position at 5,700. I'll tell you what, man, I like him even if McKissick plays. I feel like with coming off a head injury, they might just kind of take it easy with him. I like Gibson regardless this week a lot. You mentioned Madison. Yeah. He's been priced up 7,600, but he's in a good position.
Well, we talked about him earlier. So I like Madison in tournaments, even small tournaments. Mm-hmm. I just don't know that I like him in cash because I feel like there's better options. And I like Madison. I just don't like him at 7,600.
Yeah, Michelle at 4,300 is beautiful. if that happens. There's that's pretty much what I have, man. I like Elijah Mitchell as well. I think he's in a great spot. He's only 6,000. I don't understand why he's so cheap because he gets all the work. With Trey Lance is hurt, or not Trey Lance. Trey Sermon is hurt. I like Mitchell a lot. 6K, very good play. He could be a tournament and or a cash play. Like 6K is a tournament play. He can go off, and a cash play, I mean, he's pretty safe too. So he has a good floor and a good ceiling. So you can play him, look at either way. But looking at a couple guys like I'm going to slaughter his name, Ngwangu. God, I'm sorry. I apologize. The
Vikings,
the kick return of the Vikings. He's going to be, he'll be backing up Madison. But man, a guy who. Guys who are really good at returning kicks oftentimes translate. Look at David Johnson. That's what he was before he was a running back. He was really good at that. They saw the talent and they moved him over. He's got explosiveness and speed. He looks like a running back. He looks like a good running back. He might just be someone to watch for. If you want just a deep shot, he might be someone to look for. Because they're not going to give Madison 100% of the carries. Like, you never want to predict game script, but Minnesota should whoop on Detroit. If it gets too far down, they may sit Madison and give him a rest and play Mangu. I'm done.
Yeah,
him. I'm so sorry. I got to find out how to pronounce his name.
That's okay.
If you're listening, I'm sorry. I'm probably not listening, but if you are, I'm sorry. But yeah, man, I like those plays.
We're still small. We gotta move up the ranks before we have NFL players listening to our podcast. It's all right. We're growing, but we're small.
Yeah, man.
I just got to get you to crush the SEL for a little bit, and then maybe he'll be listening to our podcast.
Where is he at? I was looking at his price tag. Matt Breida. He's 5,300. I'll tell you what. If you remember back in the day, not even back in the day, like 3 years ago, which is back in the day apparently, he was really good with Mostert. He was they were like the 1-2 punch. He's very fast. He's kind of small, so you can't play him all the time. But might be someone to look for is Matt Breida.
Yeah.
He has a tough matchup against the Patriots, but he looks to be their best running back, which is kind of weird to say. Zach Moss was a healthy scratch last week. Just keep your eye on how they if they healthy scratch Zach Moss again. Look for Breida.
Yeah,
he's a guy who can literally bust like an 80, 90-yard run because he's faster than everyone else. So. I went too far on running backs. Let's move on to two wide receivers.
Yeah. So we're going to go on to wide receivers. And real quick, I want to do a little shout out here. So if you're playing DFS, unless you're like a trust fund baby or you're retired and you just have all day to crunch numbers on everything, right? Looking at target share and, snap count and rush percentage and, just doing your own projections and this and that. I did this for a little bit when I first started playing DFS and just trying to, figure out fantasy points per dollar. It's not worth it to do it on your own. It is so time consuming. You could be doing so much other things with your time. Spending time with your significant other, spend time with your kids, your loved ones, whatever that may be, focusing on your job. This is why I go to DFS Army, because every week I have a projection system that I trust when I'm looking at these players. I trust these projections. I have fantasy points per dollar in front of me. I have their salary in front of me. I have their projected ownership in front of me. This is why I go to DFS Army, and I can sort by all these things. So you can do this too. Use code FANTASYFLING for a 10% off a VIP subscription. You're looking at salary, fantasy points per dollar, projections, ceiling projections, running the optimals. And by the way, their optimals across all sports are ranked number one by daily overlay. If they're not number one, it's like number two, number three, fluctuates, but top optimization system right here. So this is what I'm looking at right now, Eric. Looking at wide receivers, top fantasy points per dollar guy with Deebo Samuel being out, Juwan Jennings.
I have him on my list.
3,100, dude.
3,100. I have to mention him. He was on my fucking surprise list.
I stole your thunder. So I mean, and he's going to be a dart for sure, a sleeper on making a milli. Although we'll see, he might be chalk. He might not be a sleeper by the time we get to Friday. It's 3% ownership right now, but if people like us and much bigger podcasts that have a lot of reach, they keep talking about him, he'll be way above 10%. But right now he's 3%. That's what we're seeing. It's Wednesday. He's the top fantasy points per dollar guy. Just below him, Cooper Kupp going against Jacksonville. If there's ever a get-right game, it's versus Jacksonville. And I'm sorry, I don't believe a word out of Urban Meyer's mouth. Brian Kelly just took the LSU job. Urban Meyer has literally said the Notre Dame job is his dream job. I don't believe a word that dude says. I mean, come on. He's married and he's out grinding on blondes at the fucking bar, dude. If he can't even be truthful to his own wife, of course he's gonna lie to the media. So he's probably got one foot out the door. The Rams, they are ready to boat race the team. They need a get right game. I can see this being it. Cooper Kupp, I like him this week, and he might be my pay up option. It's tough. I certainly will have a lot of exposure to him, whether it be tournaments or whatnot. But in cash, I kind of have a decision to make this week. I feel like between Cooper Kupp and Jonathan Taylor, I feel like this could be a good get right game. Yeah. And cash, another guy I'm looking at, Hunter Renfrow. So I did run some optimals, just some optimal lineups right now. And over at DFS Army, I'm seeing Brady, Jamal Williams, James Conner, Hunter Renfrow, and Cooper Kupp are both in there with Foster Moreau, if Waller's out, at 2,700, and Eli Mitchell. Of course, this is going to change by Saturday, by Sunday. It always does, but it's kind of the general direction I'm going. Renfrow and Kupp is my wide receivers. But also, I do like Godwin and Evans, like we talked about, kind of a bounce back. When it comes down to it, I'm going to play the chalk, but I do like these guys this week. It's kind of where I'm looking right now.
Yeah, man.
And Jawan, too, of course.
Jawan, man. What was that? Was that the Wayans brothers? Juwanna Man?
Juwanna Man, yeah. No, that's a great. My dad introduced me to that movie, and dude, that movie just had my dad rolling, dude, just dying on. It's a funny movie.
Good stuff, movie. Man. I like those guys. I like the balance between Kupp or Taylor. That's tough, man. Like here's this problem. Like here's my issue, right? I'm the JT truther. I don't play him in lineups as much as I should. I'm like, oh my god, what am I doing? And I say that, like, here's the thing though. When you say you're a truther, like, let's rewind this. We'll take 30 seconds. So everyone's a JT fan now. You can see what he does. Like, this is a talent. He's a beast. Everyone sees it. But the first 8 or 9 games last year, I don't remember what it was. Everyone was doubting him. Like, I'm not sure about JT. He's not breaking tackles. Doesn't look like he has vision. It doesn't look like this. Doesn't look like that.
He had some bad games.
He did. 100%. He 100% did. Like he even made the coaches, a little bit worried.
But the game is fast in the NFL. It just has to slow down enough for your talent to take over. It's a mental thing.
I feel like all the guys at his level have the talent to do it, but mentally, can they figure it out? The guy, I think I mentioned this last time, but he got a scholarship to Harvard. It was Yale or Harvard, one of the two. He turned it down to go to a better football school. But this shows what his intelligence is. So maybe he figured out how to detach and see the game at a slower pace, like you said. But sometimes it takes a bit. But some guys get it, some guys don't. Like, is he more? I mean, he's more talented. But what's that guy's name? The biggest bust ever in running back history. He played for the Washington football team. He was what was his name? Got started. It doesn't matter. I can't remember the name now. The biggest running back bust. Anyway, I completely lost track of where I was. But Kupp or JT. It's a tough situation. Like, Kupp has had a couple. He's had a few. No correlation there. He's had. He's still, even in bad games, he scores pretty well, right? Like, I'm looking at his game log: 27, 20, 26, 18. Some of it's Jiminy Christmas. This guy, his lowest target game is 9. Wow, he's incredible. Yeah. Can you play JT and Cup? Probably not, but man, would that be amazing?
Here's the thing: you can't today, but let's say that Henderson's out, and then you could play Sony Michel. You might be able to play him.
Yeah, you might. I went. So let me just retract. I went way off target with the wide receivers. I like Godwin Evans this week a lot. I like to stack with Brady. I think it's going to be a great, good comeback week for them. It's hard for me to never play Justin Jefferson because of how good he is. I think he's the best receiver in the league. I'll just straight up say that. I think he's the best. Same with Tyreek. I think he can, any given week, he'd put up 40 points against Denver. They have a better – I think their defense is better than what shows on paper. So I like Tyreek. Also like Ayuk this week as well. And also someone, just to throw it out there, someone to think about, DeAndre Hopkins is 6.2K. He's really cheap. He's been struggling with injuries and battling injuries and whatnot. You have Kyler, hopefully.
He's a lock for tournaments for me.
Hopeful coming back.
At that price.
Right? Yeah. But also Hopkins coming back at 6.2. That may be the cheapest I've ever seen him in his entire career, apart from games he's out, right? Like he's got a good matchup against the Bears secondary. Look for D-Hop. Might be someone to look for.
Real quick. So you just asked, could you play Jonathan Taylor in Cup?
Could you?
And
figure it out.
I just put together a lineup. If Henderson's out, you could play Herbert, 6,700, Sony Michel, 4,300, Eli Mitchell, 6,000, and then Jennings, as I talked about earlier, 3,100, Cooper Kupp, 9,000, Moreau, if Waller's out, 2,700, Jonathan Taylor, Washington football team, that leaves you 6,500 at your last wide receiver spot. You could put Marquise Brown there, you could put Jalen Waddle. If the dominoes fall correctly, you could play them both. So we're just going to have to pay attention closer to the weekend.
I like it, man. It's a little. I mean, that's a cash play, I think, right? Like,
yeah, it's cash.
You can't do that tournament. You'd have to play bottom of the barrel. But okay, you mentioned Moreau, so let's move on to tight end. I have a couple tight ends that I like. I like Moreau and O'Shaughnessy, only because Jacksonville seems to target their tight ends over and over. And Dan Arnold's out for the season. O'Shaughnessy is 2.6. Moreau is 2.7. Yeah. I think I'm going cheap on tight end this week.
I agree. Top fantasy point per dollar. We know Urban Meyer loves a good tight end. He likes to target tight ends.
Who doesn't?
He's got O'Shaughnessy this week with Arnold out. He's 2,600. Yeah, man. Over at DFS Army, fantasy points per dollar. This is more or less how I build my my tight ends in any of my lineups. Is I'm going to look at fantasy points per dollar because it's such a volatile position. You're just going to try to pay down. You're trying to find the best value. So Shaughnessy, I'm seeing 2.85x his salary right now based on projections. Moreau is just behind him. Obviously, if Waller's out, I think Moreau's a more stable play than O'Shaughnessy, but I mean, it's $100 and there's just almost stone minimum, so it's really hard to go wrong with either. Other couple guys behind him, Cole Kmet, 3,600, and Higbee at 4,800. And then obviously Gronk is always in play. So 5,300 for sure. Going to have him in tournaments. Yeah, I got to have some exposure to him as well as Andrews because, I mean, let's be honest about it. Lamar Jackson loves Mark Andrews. I saw this tweet the other day. It was a picture of Lamar, and he was just about to chuck it deep, and he's like, fuck it. Mark Andrews is out there somewhere. And Lamar actually liked it and commented on it. So, pretty straightforward. I am seeing George Kittle pop up in optimals, so I don't dislike him either, especially with Debo out. Those targets got to go somewhere, and he's certainly skill-wise, he's easily a top 5 tight end in the league. And then another guy, if you're looking for stacks, Kyle Pitts. If you're doing Brady stacks, bring it back with Kyle Pitts. I do like that play. He hasn't really gone off in a while, but he's still getting targets, so it's stackable for sure for tournaments.
I like it, man. One last guy to throw in there in the pit. I know the matchup's not great, but he's targeted a lot. Is Gerald Everett. Since he came back, since Russell Wilson came back, 8, 4, and 9 targets, 14, 7, and 14 points. You know, he's at least 2x since Russell Wilson came back every week. He looks for him like, I don't know what's going on with Wilson. I don't know if it's he had some good throws. It looked like it wasn't the finger. I think it's the offense, man. I think their offensive coordinator is garbage. I don't know. I can't. Who knows? But
I also think he wants out of Seattle.
Yeah, he probably does. But he seems to look for Everett a lot. He's averaging like 7 targets the last 3 games. For a tight end, that's incredible. That's kind of like what we talk about. We're looking for with Dan Arnold and those type of guys. So Gerald Everett is 3,800. He's a little more expensive, but he can get targeted a lot. Round this bad boy up and move on to defenses. I think the chalk defense this week is probably the Vikings, right? I mean, they're playing the Lions. It's bad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's the Lions. The Vikings are 3.2. Okay. Then you got the Eagles playing the Jets at 3.6, and then you have the 49ers at 3,000. They're playing the Seahawks, which is, it's weird to say you'd play a defense against the Seahawks. Like, we're in some weird times right now where Wilson's struggling. But the thing for me though is I get worried about is like when everyone eventually like they're like giving up on him. They're like, all right, Wilson's done. We don't want to fade Milson. We're going to fade DK, fade Lockett. They fade everyone, and they just fucking blow up. Wilson has that type of capability, so you got to be careful with that. But Vikings, 49ers, Eagles.
Vikings, 49ers, Eagles, for sure.
Vikings against the Lions, Eagles against the Jets, and 49ers against the Seahawks.
Yeah. If there's a couple... Yeah, I like that at 3,200, especially with the Vikings. Like, if I'm looking for like my large field GPPs, like my pay up options, Vikings versus the Lions. Another one I'm looking at is the Ravens versus the Steelers. The way Big Ben looked last week, I'll pay up for them at 3,400. And then the same with the Cardinals going against Dalton. Dalton's led Bears, so that they're in play for me for sure.
I think, I was going to say the quarterback, I think he had a limited practice this week. So
Fields?
Yeah, Justin Fields.
Yeah.
Watch out for that. Might not be Dalton.
Even if it's not, it's still worth a flyer for sure. I mean, Fields he's not a precision passer or anything. He's looked better. He's looked better, but let's not get carried away. And then Tampa is in consideration because they've kind of curb stomped Atlanta when they played them. So, but as far as my cash quarterback or defense rather, for fantasy points per dollar perspective, that's really where I'm going. I'm probably just going to Washington versus Oakland. Sorry, Eric. It's probably where I'm headed.
It's all right. It's all good. I understand.
Yeah.
Carr is Jekyll Hyde, man. I've said it.
Yeah.
I've said it. It's like the matchups he's supposed to get killed, he does well. And then like matchups he's supposed to do well, he doesn't do well.
Yeah.
He plays up to his level, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I pretty much like for defenses and cash games, I'm trying to hit 2,500 and below, and I'm really just looking for the best matchup. And that's the one that I do see. Washington's defense has kind of come around recently, so 2,500, it's not a bad matchup.
I agree. They're way better than they look on paper. Like they look like if you put them on paper for the season, right? They're like top 5 worst defense. You look at them for the last 4 weeks, which is what you have to do in the NFL. Like they look good. They've done much better. Agreed. Yes,
sir. Well, as far as your cash DFS Week 13 main slate preview, that's going to do it. I'm going to be writing the Week 12 Million Maker review tomorrow. I'm going to start writing that, so that'll be ready. And then, of course, we'll go over that on Making a Million on Friday, and we'll preview your large field GBP. We'll preview the Millie Maker. That's what we do every week on Making a Millie. And this week I'll be back on top. Sorry, Eric.
Well, at this point, I'm on top. Again, I reclaimed 3 weeks out of 4. Just saying.
Yeah. I just need you to beat my high score in the Millie Maker. Because this year it's 185. So if you can score 185, let me know.
All right.
All right?
Do it.
For sure. Well, we appreciate you all for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, subscribe, share, do all the things. And if you want to check out that Millie Maker preview, go over to fantasyfootballfling.com. I know a podcast, listening to a ton of podcasts can always be a big task. So I do send that out weekly. So you can subscribe so that you never actually miss one of those. It's easy, 3 to 4 minute read, but check us out. We are on YouTube. We are on Spotify. We are on iTunes. And then, of course, we are on Twitter at FantasyFling. So add us, whatever it is that you want to do. And we will see you Friday on Making a Millie.
See you on Friday where I picked the next winning lineup between us all, at least. Out.
Later.